Bowls real quick and what your assignment is. So these are several different kinds of bowls that are sitting up here. They're all kind of the same size because they were all made from the same mold, but they don't always have to be like that. These just happen to be what I always use for my examples. This is a student example. But if you take a look at them, there's some difference. There's some that have textures that are like invented textures, and then I have some that I have things that create textures which you can use. The similarity in between these is that they have a foot, and you will have to make a foot for yours when you do yours. This one is a bowl that's like a fruit bowl. Obviously this isn't going to hold your cereal or your milk because there's holes in it, but you could use it for a fruit bowl, and if you wanted to do something like this, that's totally allowed. And then the difference with this one has a different kind of a rim. So we're going to pay attention to those things, and you're going to decide what you want to make out of yours. I'm going to show you how to roll out a slab and then how to make it into a bowl. So you have your pieces of clay that's sitting here and a rolling pin. A rolling pin is what's going to help you make that flat sheet of clay, kind of like you would roll out pizza dough or cookies or something like that, if anybody's ever made like sugar cookies. This is similar. The suggestion that I have for you is to stand up because you have more leverage when you're standing. You have a lot more power. And you're going to kind of start rolling this out. I would start from, you need to start kind of from the center, and as you move your way out, you'll see you kind of need to stop. If you don't stop, you're going to end up going like this, and then you have like this weird thin piece that's not going to help you because it's going to get too fragile and brittle. Plus, what do we talk about in clay from forever and ever? What I always say about clay is that it has to be what? Even and consistent walls all the way through. So if this is really thin and this is thicker, that's not even thickness, consistent thickness all the way through. So that's not going to work. You have to release pressure when you get to the edge. So starting from that center and working your way out. Now, you need to kind of work your way out in a circular pattern if you are going to try and cover something that's round. But you want to look for, again, that consistent thickness all the way through. And I work kind of on one side, and I'm going to flip it over. I'm just going to flip my whole canvas because you have to work on that canvas. So I'm going to flip it over. So now I have this thick part here that I'm kind of going to work on too, okay? And notice I'm releasing pressure when I get to the edge so I don't smash it too thin. So if you've ever made cookies before, you don't want a cookie that's thick and then super thin on the one, because then they don't bake at the same rate. Just like this wouldn't dry at the same rate. All right, I think that's pretty good. The center is always going to be a little thicker, so that's where you really have to work and then push that out. So once I have this shape that I'm going to be using, it's a good workout. You kind of want to aim for the thickness between, I don't know, like a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch. A 1/2 might be too thick, and a 1/4 is probably pretty good, but right around 1/4 of an inch, that's where kind of you want to aim for thickness. If you want to do some carving or things on it, you might want to go for a 1/2 inch, somewhere around there. And then you have your mold. This is a plaster mold, and so because this just makes that shape, I just need to get this over to the other side. So you can just pick this up with the whole canvas and everything, or it's pretty durable. If you feel like you want to, you can also just pick it up like that and just like pull it over. So I'm just setting it over. Has anybody ever made a cake before with fondant?
That's what I was just thinking.
It's very similar to that, okay? All right, and then I'm going to just kind of work this out. The thing though, this is actually easier than fondant because I'll show you. There's some wrinkles. See how there's getting some wrinkles in it on here? See those? That's okay because it's just clay and we just smooth clay out. Okay, and here's big ones over here on the other side. And then the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of all the extra right now. So I'm going to use one of my tools, pin tool, or even just like this, this pin tool or needle tool or carving tool, whichever. I'm just going to kind of get rid of the excess for right now. So this rib does a really awesome job of getting rid of any excess clay, because this is rolled over on top of itself and created that seam, right? So I'm getting rid of that just by kind of scraping off any of the excess, getting rid of any seams or folds that have happened. Sometimes when you're rolling clay out, it has like little divots or something inside the clay. This does a fantastic job of getting rid of that. And you just want to get rid of it and smooth it all out. Always, your score is always, one element of it is always the quality and neatness. This is where this comes in. You want to kind of make sure you get all that smoothed out, because that's part of making it look neat. On it, you can use either one of these little rubbery or plasticky rubber kind of things that already have texture in, and you'll imprint them in there, and I'll show you that a little bit. So here's some. So all you have to do with that is you just hold this over there and just push this in to your clay. Or there's other things on there. This is just a tool that we have over there that has different kinds of rolly tops. So if you're like, oh, I really wanted to, you know, put this on there, you can use that and push that along, and that will make an imprint along the side if you wanted to do something like that. But if you find anything that has texture on it, can make texture. So something like this, you can put this in there and it'll make an imprint. If you wanted to use anything that you find. So here's just one example. So you can do that, or you can even kind of use that and invent another texture that's similar. Or, you know, using this, you can kind of invent your own. Just, again, like found object, anything you find, like that has texture on the end of it. If I wanted to, maybe I could, you know, I could do this and then do a bunch of different, these kind of look like gears or wheels or something. So like that's another option too. It doesn't really matter how you go about doing it, and you do not have to add texture. It's just an option that's available to you. These should be whatever you want them to be. The only assignment, the only requirement I have for you is that it has to be a slab bowl, it has to be neat, clean, and complete, and it has to have a foot. So we're going to talk about a foot, and I'm going to talk about the rim and cleaning that up. So the first thing I want to talk about is the rim. If you want it to be evenly cut all the way around, I'm going to show you a tip about how to make that happen. You would just take a little piece of paper and fold this paper down so that you're cutting off however much you want to cut off. That is the size that you want it to be. So if I want to cut off this much of this, I'm going to cut this down so it's this width. With this width, I'm going to set this like this every single time. And when I do that, I'm going to use a pen tool and I'm going to mark it. So like I'm going to cut off this much every single time. And I'm just going to move this all the way around the bowl. Now, it's the same distance from the table, right? Which means I'm cutting off the same amount all the way around, correct? Yes. So, because of that, it will be the same distance from the bottom as well. And therefore, it'll be nice and even. Does that make sense? So now I just marked this first, and then I can go after I mark it and cut it. So then I'm just going to use those as a guideline so that I can cut it right along the edge. Now we have other tools at our disposal to help us. If you cut this and it's a little bit off still, we have the rasp. Do you remember that good old rasp with the yellow handle, like a cheese grater? That you can use kind of and clean up the wall or clean up the edge or whatever if you need to. Once you've done this, cut it down, and so that'll be nice and evenly cut. Does that make sense to everyone? Because it's a really quick and simple way to do that. So there's the rim we talked about, and this is all while it's still on the mold. This is a plaster mold. It does not take your entire strength and a dagger blade to push this in and cut that clay. This is soft clay. Don't do that. If you do, it will cut the mold up, and then your molds will be a little not quite as nice to use because you have like stab marks where you've like tried to cut somebody's bones in half or something. Like, it's just clay. It'll cut really easy. Okay, so let's talk about a foot. This is the other part of the assignment that you have to have. You have to have a foot on your bowl. So a foot's what holds it up. This is just what makes it look really nice and complete. Real quick about the rim. I made mine straight across, but you don't have to. You could decide if you wanted to. What you could do is use, have an off-centered, an uneven rim, asymmetrical, so where it's like short on one end and tall on the other, or you could cut it off so that it has like a swoop in it, or like this where you kind of created a rim that has a specific kind of design on it, and that's okay too. So I'm going to show you some feet. A very, very just standard, easy, like if you aren't concerned about the foot, this is what you could do. So I'm just going to roll this clay out. Roll this out into like a coil, is what we call it. It doesn't have to be too big. All right. And then I'm going to put this just kind of along the edge. And I like to kind of set it like this and cut a little hole in it, or a slice in it like that, so that these can kind of pair up next to each other, and blend that out so you can't tell. And then I would highly suggest you stand up and take a look down at it so that you're putting this on there evenly. Okay, and how do we attach clay to clay? Yeah, we score and slip. So what I like to do is, if this is where I know it's going to be, I like to make little marks kind of on the inside and a little bit on the outside where I know I'm going to attach this. Okay, and then I know where to make my score marks. So then I can make all my score marks. I know exactly where they're supposed to go. Remember, score marks are back and forth and really roughing that clay up so that it makes a good join. So you do that on both sides that you're attaching, both pieces of clay, and then you put some slip on it. Okay, I actually don't have slip here, but we're just gonna pretend, okay? We're gonna put some slip on it, and then we're going to set this on there and push it out. Magic, thanks. So, perfect. Little slip here. I'm just gonna use this because I like to use it like a, dab this clay, or this slip on it. Ta-da. Thank you. And then we attach this, okay? And we're gonna push down a little bit, and then wanna kind of smooth that out, especially if there's anything sticking out. You don't have to completely, if you want this to look separate than the other piece, you don't have to completely smooth it out, but you wanna make sure you don't have any extra kind of random score marks that are sticking out. So smooth out parts that are making it look messy. Okay, once this is on there, you want this to kind of get to a leather hard consistency, or the start of a leather hard consistency. If you still have time in class, you can put it in front of the fan, and then for a few minutes, and then take it off of that before you leave. But if not, you're gonna have to wrap this all up for the evening, and then the next day you can take it off. When it's ready to take off, if it's leather hard, I think this is probably a little too soft, but I'm gonna show you anyway, I think. So you just kind of have to loosen it, and then you'll just pull up like this and then flip it over. Okay, the next step is to, if it's holding its shape really good, you can keep it off of this. But if you take a look inside of here, see how inside of here there's like a wrinkle? That's from where the clay wrinkled a little bit. You guys see that? And that, like, a little bit of edge things that kind of maybe needed to be addressed. This is where you will definitely fix that. So same thing, you can take that rib, make sure you're holding your hand here to support it, and you're blending that out. Okay, see, just got rid of it. Super easy. Okay, any questions about this? Got it? Okay, if you would like to add holes in there or spaces in it that kind of makes it more of a fruit bowl than an actual cereal bowl or a bowl that holds liquid, you can do that easily just by, at this stage of the game, you would, before you pull it off of your mold, you would want to cut yourself a shape that you want to use. So if I want to use like a little like diamond shape maybe. So like this is the diamond shape that I have set to cut to use. All right, I would cut this out. Okay, and I'm gonna set it here. And what I would do first is just trace where I want this to go. Okay, and before I cut it out, I would trace them everywhere where I want them to go. So I like to use mine if they're even and symmetrical. You can do it there and then come back over here and add another one here and then just kind of find the middle of that and really evenly distribute them along your bowl. So that's up to you if you wanted to do something like that, but this pattern that you make yourself allows it to be used so everything's even. Once you're ready for that, you cut this. If it's still soft clay, you do not need to push very hard on this. Otherwise, it will cut giant diamond shapes into the plaster, and you don't want that or need that. Okay, once you've cut them, then you can pull it out, and then you have it out. And it's for the same concept. Once you've got them all cut out, then you can pull that up, and then it will be the shape that you want it. Okay? Stop.